By the time we return in September, many students will have already started their third-level college courses. And Tánaiste, we're all too well aware of the debacle that was the SUSI grants application system last year. Thousands of applications were delayed, rejected in error, and in some cases lost. I know of one young student, believe it or not, whose grant only came through this week. That student had been waiting for that grant since before Christmas. As you know, Tánaiste, students will not be entitled to graduate from their courses if their fees remain outstanding. And that's not to mention, or to begin to mention, the hardship caused to many students in the delay or denial of grants. This morning we have the Ombudsman Emily O'Reilly confirming that, Emily Logan, Ombudsman for Children, confirming that students may complain to her if they are unhappy with their treatment by SUSI. So Tánaiste, I want to ask you, what guarantee can you give us that next year's intake of third-level students won't have the same experience? Can you guarantee that the first payment of third-level grants will come through by Christmas? Have the recommendations of the independent review into SUSI been fully implemented? And are you satisfied, Tánaiste, that SUSI has adequate resources in place to process third-level grant applications in a timely fashion?
Well, first of all, I want to join with Deputy McDonald in expressing my own and the government's best wishes on the 95th birthday of Nelson Mandela, a heroic and iconic figure, I think, for all of us. For the coming year, SUSI has introduced changes to make the process much easier for most applicants and developed its internal procedures to respond to the experiences of last year's applicants. Nobody in this House is satisfied with the operation of SUSI during its first year of operation, but all of the changes to SUSI will serve to significantly improve the service offered to students who are applying for student grants. There have been reports in the media of students still awaiting grant payments for the 2012-13 academic year, and those reports are of serious concern to all of us, and particularly the Minister for Education. Of the 70,000 applications for student grants, 99.23% are now fully complete in every way. 18 students, representing 0.02% of all applications, still need to send some documentation to SUSI, and SUSI has spoken to each of these 18 applicants and are making contact by phone, email and post to gather these few remaining documents. For another 524 applicants, representing 0.75% of all applications, final decisions have been made on their applications, but payments have not yet been made. For most of these applications, this is because SUSI has not received bank account details or students are no longer continuing their courses. The next payment run will be on the 25th of July, and we would appeal to each of these students to ensure that they have provided their bank details to SUSI in time for payments to be made on the 25th of July. As we look towards the coming year, 22,000 students who were awarded grants last year have already submitted applications to renew their grants for next year, while 26,000 students have submitted new applications for next year. This will allow SUSI to process significantly more applications over the summer months, rather than having to wait until September to begin receiving applications. An independent review of SUSI was carried out by Accenture in recent months. In line with the recommendations of that review, and in preparation for the 2013-2014 academic year, both the online application system and the application assessment process have been further developed to deal with the difficulties experienced in Year 1. A number of new initiatives will also make the application process more efficient this year. Applications for the 2013-14 academic year have been accepted since the 20th of May this year, while those who received grants last year have been able to apply for a renewal of their grant online in recent weeks also. A number of changes have been made to the application process, including the collection of bank account details at an earlier stage in the process, so that grant payments can be made as soon as applications are approved. Perhaps more significantly, a direct transfer of data From Revenue Commissioners, the Central Admissions Office and the General Registration Office is now in place, while SUSI now have direct access to appropriate DSP social welfare records. This will allow SUSI to very significantly reduce the supporting documentation required of applicants. Finally, SUSI is also working to improve how they are communicating with students. The website has been completely overhauled to make sure that all information for students is available on one website, and an online tracker system is now also available to applicants to allow students to monitor the progress of their applications.
Well, the very fact that there are nearly 600 students still at this stage in July who still have complications around their grant applications tells you something. But of course, that's only a fraction, it's only a glimpse of the chaos that we know that reigned in this system for the last academic year. You mentioned there the provision of documentation. Let me tell you, there were students, Tánaiste, I'm sure you're aware, and parents, the length and breadth of the country, almost at the point of nervous breakdowns with the level of bureaucracy, and paperwork involved in this exercise. So I am glad to hear that there is some data exchange between Revenue, CAO and the Department of Social Protection. That's hardly a revolutionary thing. We don't exactly live in the dark ages, but I'm glad you've finally gotten to do that. I don't get from your response to me the kind of commitment that I was asking from you on behalf of government to the students. You say that the independent review recommendations have been implemented. You instance some of those. So are you saying to students now that there will not be the chaotic scenario that we had in the last academic year? Are you telling students now that they will have their first payment, that they will have payment by Christmas time? Can you actually make that commitment? And finally, Tánaiste, on the issue of assessment for the grant, you'll know that assessing the eligibility of a student for a grant on the basis of gross income has caused huge problem for lots of families. They've been in correspondence with me and my colleagues. I've no doubt they've been in correspondence with you, because it takes no account of outgoings, of the debt burden that families carry. So you mentioned assessment criteria. Would it not be a fairer basis to calculate somebody's eligibility on the basis of net rather than gross income?
Thank you. Tánaiste.
First of all, the number of students who are in who apply for and receive student grants is very large. About 42% of all third-level students are in receipt of a grant. Last year, what was happening was there was a transfer of the student grant administration system from 66 different bodies, county councils, city councils, VECs, to one single body, SUSI. I have acknowledged, and I know the Minister for Education has acknowledged on a number of occasions, that there were problems with that. I think the important thing is that the lessons that were learned in that transition process have resulted in changes being made. There has first of all been an increase in the number of staff who are operating in SUSI in order to process the applications. I think it's 23 additional staff that have been appointed to SUSI, and three senior staff as well. In addition to that, there was a review carried out of the way in which the process was operating. That was done by Accenture. As I've said, the recommendations that were made by Accenture are being implemented. Some of those involve earlier application, processing of application, earlier and easier way of dealing with that.
Sorry, we're over
I think it's
time.
fair to say. I think it's fair to say that students will not experience the kind of difficulties that they experienced last year. But as we all know, It depends on the individual application, depends on the quality of the application sometimes, it depends on various information that is provided. But as far as the operation of SUSI is concerned, the kind of problems that we saw last year, they have been addressed. There have been quite a significant number of changes that have been made now for the operation, Well, every individual.
We're over time. Look.
Every individual. I mean, there's an application system for student grants. And nobody can, when somebody puts in an application for a student grants, nobody can give a guarantee as to what the decision is going to be made on that grant. It may be. No, wait a second. Wait a second. You asked if the recommendations of the review that was carried out were being implemented. I detailed for you the changes that are being made. And when that wasn't bad enough for you, you then decide to change tack and to ask me something different. The students, the grant applications will be processed efficiently by SUSI, and we have put in place a much better system for this year. And yes, it is the intention that the applications will be processed by Christmas.
Thank you.